down in a situation like this or on his show, and we can talk about, I can intellectualize it. I can't afford to do that now. I have to go back to the same place that I was in that first day of makeup in Halloween 2018. Then the next time for Halloween Kills, I showed up in Chris Nelson's makeup chair. I was in exactly the same spiritual place. And I have to do that in January 10th when I show up to shoot Halloween Ends. So ask me that question a year and a half from now.
There's literally no one else that can play this character. I mean, you just, God, it's wild to hear that. But I think, and I said this to you before, I don't know how you guys feel. I feel like your version of Michael Myers is just one of the best we've seen because of that, right? I mean, it is so intense and believable. I'm panning out. Yes, sir.
I was just curious, did you have any interactions with John Carpenter either in 2018 or this time around?
Yeah, he's a salty old dog. He is, man. He says shit just to get your goat. He does it on purpose. And he and Nick have this really wonderful, acerbic relationship.
They're longtime friends.
The longtime friends. I mean, he's a salty old dog, and Nick Castle's got that beautiful Italian American wit. You know what I mean? He's got that rolling kind of like bada bing, bada boom, bada bang. He's got that thing going on, and so they'll go back and forth with each other. I saw him on both. Just got the chance, but I used to play volleyball at his house when he was married to Adrienne Barbeau, and shortly after, when Cody was still a small child, I used to hang out with my friend Alex Daniels, who went to the University of South Carolina with me. He's the president of the Summits Association now. There were a whole bunch of us people that hung out with Adrienne and played volleyball, and I met him a few times there. Again, he does things for effect, but I think the reason is because that man's mind is always cranking out something new. You know what I mean? He doesn't have time for small talk or for adulation. He could care less what anybody thinks of him. I mean, but his blessing was what was most important.
Also want to say thank you for coming here this weekend.
Oh, thanks. We owe this to Jay, actually, because I was supposed to be in England right now working, and then Jay called and said, hey, they called and asked, like, who would you like to see here that's not going to be coming? And Jay asked me if I'd be available.
Thank you. We're all thankful. Yep.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong on this question, but I know in the series, original one, there was a Halloween 2 that had like an ad for Michael Myers inside of that movie, but it was about, there was an experiment going on, and the TV would play a signal.
That's Halloween 3.
Halloween 3?
Yes.
So my question is why did Halloween 3 be like that? Why was Halloween 3 without Michael Myers?
Dude, they were doing drugs. That's all I got to say.
Sir.
So earlier you mentioned in 2018 that the original ending with the fight scene didn't make the cut.
Right.
So in Kills, is there any scenes? You mentioned the route England didn't make the cut of this one, but any scenes that you wish that we're not going to see on like Blu-ray or special editions that you wish people could see that stuck out to you?
No, there was one scene where we were tossing around different ideas. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it may or may not end up on Blu-ray. But it was one scene where we were tossing. David and I were talking about ideas, and he had one idea, I had another, and he's like, "Well, let's try both of them." I'm like, "Great." So when it came down to filming my idea, and this really surprised me, everything's set up, and he goes, "All right, Shape, it was your idea, take it away." So basically, I was directing the scene, and that's David Gordon Green. That man has so much self-confidence that he's not worried about anybody taking anything from him. He wants everybody to give what they have to the project. And that scene that was my idea didn't make it to the final cut. His did, but of course it did. It's David Gordon Green.
Thank you.
Yes.
So with Jamie Lee Curtis being from the original and being part of a lot of more, did she have any input on the newer movies? Like any inside, like?
Oh yeah, she's an executive producer, man. She's sitting at the round table. When they're sitting there, throwing back, David Gordon Green, and Danny McBride, and Malcolm Codd, and Ryan Freeman, and Ryan Turek, and when Jason Blum gets involved, which he doesn't get very involved at all, really. but she is absolutely 100% a part of everything that happens.
Okay.
She 100%.
I want to ask you about one scene, because only because I've seen the film. Has everyone seen the film, Halloween Kills? Okay. There's one scene that I'm wondering how it was explained to you or how it evolved. And it's towards the beginning of the film, so it's not giving much away. But there's this choosing where they Cutco. They're going back and choosing this knife and using it, going back and using this knife and using it. It was like what was that scene about?
It was one of David's ideas.
Yeah.
And
I'm just wondering how it was explained to you.
Oh, well, with that, I'll tell you about this. So with that, because I'm in the space, in the place, once David tells me something, then it's just really a matter of like knowing where the camera is.
Right.
Knowing where, there's a thing about doing stunt work and stunt fighting, right? Is like when you're fighting and someone throws a punch at your head, you can be 5 feet away, camera behind you. As long as I snap my head, it's gonna look like you knocked the crap out of me, right? But physically, when you fight physically, when you stab somebody, when you kick somebody, when you punch somebody, you gotta go hard. You gotta go hard, man, because the camera is gonna pick it up and just barely touch. It's gonna look fake. You gotta bury it. Well, Lenny is he's a comedian, an old school comedian, funny guy, funny freaking guy. But he's not a stunt guy, and he's not in such great shape either. I mean, the guy, you know what I mean? He's not, you know. And so so those blades were actually marked. They were the handle with a flat piece, but there was no blade there. That was all CGI. So so it was just we had the two takes like you'd have. I mean, we had when they established those blades there were real blades.
Right.
But then when I go in and start stabbing, there's no blades on those knives. They're all marked for CGI, so the computer graphics people couldn't put those blades in. But when I'm picking them up and jamming them into them, I gotta jam those things, man. I'm not gonna like, ooh. So I had to like, boom, bury him in. But the thing is, I'm not going through his spine. I'm not going through his ribs. I can take it. Like I hit him as hard as I expected that I would get hit, and he was not happy. He said, Jimmy, can you lighten up a bit? And I'm like, no, I can't, man. I'm sorry, dude. And yeah, but it was, I thought, when David told me, I thought it was a very, I saw it as sort of operatic. It was sort of a beautiful, boom, a dance.
It seemed like a warm-up to me. A warm-up for a big night ahead. And that's the other thing. The one consistent thing in this film is this film is totally in the dark. I mean, it is all happening in one night at night. There's no daytime in this movie, and that's how you shot it.
Yeah. Well, we do a thing. We start, because when you're doing interiors, you're shooting interiors, of course, and in the soundstage, where Michael's house was and all that. That's all built in the soundstage. So the street and and they do such a wonderful job. It's amazing what set builders and art design can do. So you start at the beginning of the show, showing up at 5 in the morning, but because we have to have 12-hour turnaround from the time we wrap until the time they try to avoid paying us overtime, because, for instance, on 2018, I was on turnaround. They call it turnaround almost the whole show. So I wasn't getting 12 hours. So whatever they agreed to pay me, they had to pay me double, because that's the way the Screen Actors Guild works. They want us to get sleep. Only I wasn't getting sleep. I was working like 12, 14, 16, 18-hour days. And so for Kills, we started showing up at 5 in the morning, and every day the call time would be pushed. 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, 10 in the morning. And so and then by the time we got towards the middle and end of the show, that's when we were showing up at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, shooting all night until daybreak, and all that was outside practicals, like the playground and all that kind of stuff.
And all the sound stages, you're not using anything in Hollywood?
No, all of those are all in Wilmington in Kills. But all the stuff with the mob fights. So there's two ways we shot them. The mob fights were in the neighborhood, in the very same neighborhood as the playground. So that was all lights and trucks pulling up and everything else. That was real. But then a lot of the kills we did on a Lazy Susan. So I was on a Lazy Susan with lights flashing and bodies flying and stabbing and killing and beating. Like when I'm using the baseball bat in the end, I probably gosh, for about an hour or longer, I was beating this big bloody sponge thing, just trying to get the right angles and the right blood spats. And you know, man, I was sore. It was like, I mean, it was just like boom, boom. I mean, the Tommy Doyle stab probably took an hour. I don't know. We probably did 20 takes of it.
Did you get any fun time with Anthony Michael Hall? I mean, talk about a repertoire of great 80s films.
I know, right? No, again, I gave him his space. Well, let me tell you something about him, man. So he also is very, he goes deep. And so when we got on set, he walked over and said, "Hey, Mike, how you doing?" We had this short conversation, didn't talk to him at all through the process. It was after the film that we actually sat down and had a conversation about, you know, really, I mean, a nice conversation about spirituality, about traveling, about, you know, all these beautiful things that you talk about when you meet somebody and you're friends.
Yeah.
But for the film, so his energy level was so intense, and so I mean, I can say I pride myself. I don't like this. Well, okay, so what I'm really good at is hitting marks. I'm really good at choreography and hitting marks. Once someone tells me a place, I mean, a director from over, Sam Raimi I worked for one time, and I was doing a fight scene, and he was doing some really tight stuff, and he goes, "Okay, Jimmy, boom, 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 and when you get here, I need you exactly 1 inch over." And I nailed it, because that's what I do. I'm just good at that. So the first 2 takes in the mob scene, I look left, I look right, I look left, and then I go here. I go right first. Then my first fight's on the right. The first 2 takes, I looked left, I look right, I look left, I look right. I'm supposed to fight. Boom! I'm around on Anthony Michael Hall, because that dude, whatever was going on inside of him, every inch of my spidey sense was like danger, danger. That dude was gonna mess my stuff up. And so I had to get, "Sorry guys, sorry." And you know, I never do it, so it's okay, but you know, I screwed up 2 takes just because Anthony Michael Hall's energy behind me was so dangerous.
This has been a great conversation. I think we're all pretty excited about what's to come. James Jude Courtney, one of the best. We're so happy to have you in Detroit. We hope you're gonna come back and see us again.
Always, man, always.
Give it up for James Jude Courtney, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today.